And here we go. I'm going to hit him with this. Had to get some use out of that. I don't know if you guys saw that or not, but we don't have any watchers yet. But I'm sure soon we'll have some folks jumping on. With it being Labor Day, happy Labor Day, by the way, guys. I'm not real sure what to expect. Although it's later in Labor Day, I think everybody's getting ready for work tomorrow, probably back home. So, all right, we got some folks jumping on. Welcome. We are going to ruffle some feathers tonight with some opinions, and we're going to cover a lot of different topics tonight. We encourage you to share your opinions, your thoughts. If you have any questions or have any topics you want us to talk about, please drop them in the comments. We'll display those on the screen as we go along. But let's kick things off. And Bill, how are you doing tonight? What's going on with you?
Oh, not too bad. Winding down on the holiday weekend. We got the start of season just over the horizon. We're 29 days away now. And I'll tell you what, actually, guys, I slept with my windows open last night, and I woke up extremely cold this morning. It was a good feeling, but it definitely caught me off guard.
Yep, it's September. And down there in Southeast Michigan, we got Dennis with us tonight. Dennis, how you doing tonight?
Worn out, but I'm here. Yeah,
awesome.
What'd you say, 29 days out?
29 days.
Yeah, 29 days. I haven't even checked the trail cameras yet. I'm hoping to get to do that this week. Hopefully got some good news to report. And I've seen some of the stuff that Jordan was putting on his Facebook page. You got a nice buck running around there, bud.
Yes, sir.
And back with us tonight, we got Jordan Hoover from the UP. He was on with us about a month ago. This is what sparked tonight's live was we talked about the NRC and the regulation changes, and there was a lot of commentary during that live of what people want to see out of Michigan's deer herd and their thoughts on regulations and all that. But Jordan, how you been?
I've been great. I've been absolutely great. It's the end of the summer. That first twinge of fall is in the air. Up here, we've had low 40s a couple of mornings now. Got some tops of leaves that are starting to turn, a little bit of that light green starting into yellow. It's an exciting time. Trying to get, the last of my outdoor projects finished up because, here in the UP, it'll probably snow next week. But, working on a woodshed and, checking cams and scouting some new ground. I got roped into coaching football, so I'm up to my neck in that. I'm running 2 kids between 2 different football teams, and it's madness, but I love it.
Right. Hey, real quick before we move on to Robert, Jordan, I've seen you've been pretty busy too with different podcasts, and you got some other things going on. What are some things we could be looking for, featuring Jordan Hoover?
This coming week here, I believe there will be an episode of Michigan Out of Doors coming out. I sat down with Jimmy Gratzinger last week and did an interview about the DMI and deer regulations. Some pretty candid commentary with Jimmy. It was good. That should be popping out this week. Just wrapped one up with the fellas from Generations to Hunt here last week, so that one's out. And I think about a week and a half back, I did one with Deer IQ as well. Those are all recently concluded and available to the public.
Excellent. Yeah, if you guys didn't catch our live or haven't heard Jordan speak before, we encourage you to watch that or catch some of these podcasts, or definitely watch for Michigan Out of Doors TV. You've got to hear how these regulations, how that whole debacle went down, because it was truly a debacle, and Jordan did a great job of shedding light on that and that whole situation. So definitely need to check that out. And we got a good friend of ours on the page here. We got Robert Barrick. He's coming to us out of Grand Traverse County, right, Robert?
Yep.
So
Grand Traverse Northwest, what they say, 13 or 12 APR zone.
Yep.
And
so, Robert, how you been? What you been up to?
Getting ready for the season. It's
Right.
it's just that time of year, gathering things up, running cameras, scouting, just getting ready for that mad run come October 1st.
Absolutely. It sure snuck up on us, doesn't it? Even though we always know it's coming, it sneaks up fast. So,
Never
It gets
get there
faster
quick
every
enough.
year.
right.
No.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, I think a lot of the things we're going to talk about are formed based on our experiences, our situations out there in the woods. So, we've got a good mix here: Southern Michigan, Mid Michigan, a couple Northern Lower Peninsula guys, and then a UP guy. So obviously the hunting's very different from one end of the state to the other. So I just want to real quick kind of go around one more time here, and what do you see in your neck of the woods? And in an ideal situation, what would you like to see in your neck of the woods? So let's start with Dennis. How's the deer numbers look down there? And if you could change anything, what would you want to see?
Actually, more bigger bucks, but you know how them big boys are anyways. They don't want to come out until the very last light. See tons of basket racks all day long. That's the only thing I changed. But I mean, as far as the buck numbers here in Wayne County where I hunt, honestly, I see a lot of bucks, but they're all small little dinky ones. I don't see anything with no size unless they're on camera and it's nighttime until right around the 26th. Once 26th hits, for the next 2 weeks, it stays busy. I'm getting decent bucks. It's just got to sit all day. That's the thing.
Right. Let's go up to the UP, Jordan. How's things looking up there? And what would you like to see out of your deer herd and your hunting situation up there?
No deer, just wolves. No, I'm kidding.
I think I've heard that before.
Everything I've seen this year is pretty encouraging. So far, it appears to me that numbers have gotten a bump, which was, to be expected because we pretty much didn't have a winter last year, which was crazy. And it came at a good time because deer numbers have been somewhat down for a while. So I'd say it's pretty fair to say there's some recovery in the numbers there. I am seeing quite a few does with twin fawns, which is encouraging. We had one with triplets, which I've never seen personally before. Everybody's looking pretty healthy, pretty fair buck numbers this year. And again, I think that's relative to the fact that we had no winter. We've typically had quite a sex ratio imbalance here in the UP, especially the Superior watershed, because we haven't had the ability to take those in 10 years. But yeah, things are positive trending. We had a little bit of, I wouldn't call it a drought, but drier than normal conditions, such that, up in the high country, a lot of the little cuts and valleys and things up there where there's typically the little babbling creeks in the bottom, most of those were dry. So that would definitely impact the deer movements. But then we had a monsoon rain. So I don't know, maybe it'll offset. I don't even know what to expect going into October. Sometimes you get those Octobers where it just rains and it rains and it rains. So who knows? But all things are positive moving forward for us at this time.
Good. Bill, what about you down there in mid-Michigan? How are things looking?
It's looking really good. Like on my parcel here, I think I'm at 10 cameras, so I get a pretty good monitor of everything around, plus doing some driving. The only thing that I've personally noticed is the doe to buck ratio here is just insane. I get 10 to 20 does per day on camera, and I'll get 2 or 3 bucks. You go riding around in the fields out here, you'll see 30, 40 does, and you'll see 8 or 10 bucks off to the back, but it just seems like that doe to buck ratio here is just way out of whack. To me personally, it seems like there's at least 2 full does per buck, if not more. So my game plan this year is I plan to shoot some does, but if anybody else would like to shoot some does, I'd like to get going on that, try to bring the balance back a little bit. I've seen a lot of does this year with twins, which is awesome. As far as the population itself, they're everywhere here. They're all over. But that ratio, try to tone down the does a little bit, kind of push the bucks to maybe get out and look a little more. That's what I'd like to see here.
Okay.
Well, you need some help with that. Let me know.
Yeah,
I'll go
Bill,
up there.
was that an invite for everybody? Because you're probably going to have a lot of people reaching out to you now.
I'm sick that day. We'll have to reschedule, guys.
Come on, drop a pin for me, brother.
Yeah.
I got your address.
Even the driving I've done around, Bay County here and then in Saginaw County, it seems like it's pretty fair across to at least Bay and Saginaw County that the buck to doe ratio, the does definitely are taking the higher side of it.
Okay. Robert, what are you seeing over there in the Northwest lower there?
I mean, last year it seemed like the numbers were down a little bit, but the buck to doe ratio is starting to come around more and more every year. Especially, I'd say probably the last 2 years, it's really started to come closer to equaling out. It's still not where it should be. I mean, there's definitely more work that needs to be done, but the amount of bucks per doe we're seeing now are definitely better than what they used to be, where you'd see 30 or 40 doe and you'd be lucky if you'd see a little spiker chasing it. But now you get a hot doe running through and you'll see, 2, 3, 4 bucks. They might not be legal bucks because obviously I'm in the APR zone here, but the bucks are there. And then this year, I don't know, cameras have been kind of slow, but the weather, obviously it's been hot, so deer really aren't moving like they normally would be. But I don't know, time will tell. I mean, it's definitely getting better around here, but like I said, there's definitely more work that needs to be done.
Okay. So, Robert, if you could, because, I don't know if a lot of people know the regulations involved in the APR counties. Could you kind of explain, how you have to hunt the bucks there and how the tags are used in that particular part of the state?
So, I always get a combo tag. You're allowed 2 bucks. Your first buck has to be 3 or more points on one side, and then your second buck has to be 4 or more points on one side. But you can also use one of those tags for a doe, so that would drop you back to, but you have to watch what you use on your buck tags because you have what they consider a standard buck tag, and then they also have the restricted tag. If you mess up and you use your standard tag on a doe, your first buck automatically has to have 4 or more on one side. So you got to watch what tag you use.
Okay.
But you can also do the over-the-counter doe tags too.
Yeah. So I know over here, I'm just east of that APR zone. That regular tag or standard tag, whatever you want to call it, has to be a 3-inch or longer. So it could be a spike 4-inch. You could use that tag. And then we still have the restricted tag of 4 points or more on one side. So, all right. Yeah. I just wanted to clear that up for folks that aren't familiar with the APR zone regulations there. So that's good information to know. So, I would kind of echo Robert and I aren't too far from each other, but I don't know. I feel like the numbers are down from just a few years ago, but looking better. I've been seeing more bucks on camera this year than I have does, so that's encouraging. I've seen some nice mature bucks also up this way. Now driving back and forth to work, I work in Emmett County. I definitely see a ton of does. So I do think the ratio overall, even though I'm seeing more bucks where I'm at, I think the overall ratio, seems to lean towards the doe side. So with that said, when we look at the regulation changes that just came out, it seems like they really have one thing in mind. They really want to go after this doe population. There's different restrictions in different parts of the state. There's different seasons now in different parts of the state. It seems southern Michigan, Dennis and Bill, I'm not sure if it's in your area. I can't quite recall, but you can pretty much deer hunt or doe hunt till the end of January now. Is that right, Dennis?
Yeah. Yeah, we can smoke them all the way till January 31st.
Okay. Bill, are you affected by that at all, or?
That I've got to read up on a little more. I seen they made the changes to it, but I haven't looked into it too deep.
Yeah, there used to be 3 counties down here with the extended season. They're, I guess, gonna spread it over a bunch of counties down here now. So I forget how many.
So I'm just kind of curious your guys' thoughts on that season, and this is for anybody, not just Dennis, but you can hunt all the way till January, and I've seen bucks drop their antlers sometimes in November if they're stressed or their levels are down. They've been rutting so hard. I mean, what do you guys think about that? Do you think that's a good call? You really
Honestly,
shooting a buck.
Yeah, down here, it's great and all. I mean, if myself, I don't think it's cool because usually that extended season, all them does are pretty much bred already. That's the one thing I don't like about it. But and then if you do shoot a buck in January, if you go to recover him, you go to pick his head up, bing, off goes an antler. You got that to worry about too. But yeah, I just don't like the idea of them being all bred and then going out there and smoking a bunch of them because it kind of is our future, right?
Right. I mean, what do you get? Open it up to everybody else. I mean, your thoughts on that, extending that season all the way through the end of January.
I'll be that guy. So this is kind of, me stepping out of my peninsula a little bit here, but I did spend a little bit of time down in the Thumb area in June and July doing some doe management on some farms down there. And there's no question there's a deer density problem. It's crazy. People I talked to were remarking that they'd been told as much as 140 deer per square mile, which is ridiculous. You got farmers absolutely losing their butts with stuff like that. I talked to one. He was talking to me about in excess of $135,000 worth of crop damage alone last year. I don't know how small farms like that can take those kinds of hits. I mean, there's a certain amount of insurance, but it don't cover it all. And you're running, roadkill deer through the head of a corn combine, you're getting the antlers stuck in the tires, all the tertiary expenses that come with it for a farmer. Obviously, you've got a lot of negative impacts on the forestry side of things, right? Because you're getting no regen at all with that kind of a deer population. And basically, it is the ag that is propping up a population of deer that exceeds its carrying capacity several times over. There's no question what has to be done. The question comes in how do we address that? And I think the department's deployed a number of measures over the years. And it seems like, by and large, there's just an unwillingness on the behalf of hunters to do the work. And I know there's some guys out there that are absolute diehards about doe management. They're excellent stewards. They do their part. But I think that there's not nearly enough of those guys doing that. So when you see a broad regulation like that, where, it's mortar tubes, miniguns, and howitzers through the end of January, that tells you that we're not doing our part. We're not doing our job. So they're reaching for any tools at their disposal, any mechanisms, I guess by any and all means necessary would be the vernacular, right? Do I like it? I don't know. People always worry about bucks being killed, that have lost their antlers. I'd like to think that people are going to be responsible enough to check their target. I mean, no different than taking out a young doe, right? Are you shooting a button buck? You should know your target before you squeeze the trigger, right? That's hunter safety 101. Identify your target. Obviously, there's guys that aren't so responsible, and things do happen. Do I think that happens in great number? I don't know. I'd like to think not. But it all goes back to individual responsibility. I think that it's hard. If you're the department, what do? because the bottom line is you've got to get more guys to shoot more does, and we've got declining hunter numbers. So how do you incentivize that? Is lengthening season going to do that? I guess my personal opinion is no. No, it won't, because providing more opportunity to do something that hunters are choosing not to do doesn't make them do it more. Just my 2 cents.
Right. Very well said. So, on that point, I actually have a video here, and I hope that it will allow us to talk through it. But, to the point of there's plenty of opportunity to harvest doe, and they're throwing everything at it now. They've extended seasons. You can buy countless amount of doe tags. Now, starting this year, muzzleloader season is really no longer muzzleloader. It's extended firearm season. So, they've really taken everything off, to try to allow more opportunity. And not that there hasn't been plenty of opportunity in years past, but one thing we've talked about before, and like Jordan said, is doe management is kind of a snafu here in Michigan. And last year with the reporting harvest, we're reporting that we're shooting a lot more bucks than does in the state of Michigan. Michigan hunters want that for whatever reason. They want that rack, and that's fine. That's your license. That's your choice. But at the same time, I think if you ask most hunters, they want to crack at a nice mature buck. And let me see. I'm going to pull this up here. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
So this is the harvest numbers from last year, and sorry, I took this off my phone, and it's a slow scroll. The left column is the antlered harvest. The right column is the antlerless harvest numbers for each county. And as we go through this, you can see most counties, it's way imbalanced. The buck harvest supersedes the doe harvest by quite a bit. Now, there are some counties that it's a lot more in line. I think I counted 2 or 3 counties total in the whole state that actually used more or reported more antlerless harvests than antlered harvests coming out of last year. So as this continues to scroll, what do you guys think about that? We have if it's brown, it's down, but I really don't think that's the case here in Michigan. It appears they want to shoot bucks. There's your totals right there. 155,649 antlered, and it was 123,000 antlerless. So thoughts on that?
I'll ruffle feathers again. That's what we're supposed to do tonight, right?
Yep.
So
That's right.
Here's one of the problems. There are not nearly enough hunters processing their own meat. They don't know how to do it. That's a craft. That's a skill that's just vanished to the pages of history. Guys are much more content to go down to the processor and shell out $200 and get their snacks kicks and their whatever smoked cuts of this and that and the other thing is have it all done for them. I wasn't raised in a house that did that. I grew up with my old man processing deer and, gotten deer doing the whole thing. From hoof to table, right? So to me, taking it to a processor is foreign. And I think in the context of doe management, why are guys not willing to shoot more does? Well, if you don't know how to process your own meat and it's $200 a shot, about the third deer that you take to the processor, the old lady starts getting into your butt a little bit, don't she? $600 on what? Well, honey, it is $200. We could have got new cabinets. We could have, right? I'm not wrong.
You're not wrong at all. That's the thing.
Cost is a factor, and there's a skill gap there. I would love to see, honestly, hunters getting together at sportsmen's clubs or even the DNR putting some together, whatever. How do we do this? How do we take a deer from fur on to in the freezer? How do we do this? Teach people how to do it, because I think that skill's been lost.
Yeah, that's a good point. What about everybody else? What do you guys think about this? The doe harvest or the harvest reporting numbers from last season?
I mean,
I know you guys got
some of these
opinions.
counties. and it's insane the amount of bucks taken to a doe. There's like downstate. I don't know exactly which counties it is, but the numbers are just staggering away from each other, and it's way more bucks. Where like you look at perfect timing. Like if you look at Grand Traverse, and I actually looked this up. I'm glad you brought this up, Tim, because I looked at this for the last couple of years, and like you start looking at some of these APR counties, and the numbers are actually somewhat close. Where you get into downstate, and some of them counties are just insane. The amount of bucks being taken to a doe. Like Genesee, there's a good one.
Yeah,
But
Kalamazoo
I don't know.
County.
It's like you've got so many of these guys out here that are, oh, I'm shooting the big deer to get the meat. Well, I mean, come on, shoot a full grown doe. You're going to get the same amount as you are as a buck.
Absolutely.
Not calling.
Sorry, Bill, I got you covered up right now.
No, you're good.
Thank you.
So, I mean, they want to force the doe harvest issue pretty hardcore, but like we've said before in years past, there's been just as much opportunity. Obviously, they're going to give you a little bit more opportunity this year with some of the changes, but that seems to be the case that doesn't matter. So,
well, if I'm not mistaken, they've opened up. They've opened up early antlerless this year to public land also, haven't they?
Yep.
Yep.
That's what I thought.
So I think one of the things in this mix too that you really can't get around is the cultural evolution of the modern day hunter. The roots of hunting are what? Feeding your family, putting food on the table, providing. There are a great many hunters today that simply do not need venison to survive. They've got, a couple incomes in the house, whatever. They go down to the grocery store, to Kroger, to Myers, to Walmart, wherever it is they shop, and they buy their cuts of meat, their bratwurst, their pork chops, or chicken, or whatever it is that they like. That's how we're providing for our families these days. The way in which we provide has changed. And because of that, our value systems as a hunting fraternity have evolved along with that cultural shift, where hunting is now recreation. It is become sport. And I don't know a lot of guys that hunt does for sport, which, since we're on that topic, the wisest deer in the woods is that 8.5-year-old swamp donkey doe. Let me tell you, I'll get back on point now. So when guys are hunting for sport, they're hunting for recreation, they're hunting for a thrill, they're hunting antlers. The focus is, I got to get my target buck. I mean, how many guys have you heard? They've got, a camera roll. Oh, this is, Turbo, and this one's, Ironhead, and this one's, whatever. They got all these hit list bucks that are named, and they've got to get their buck. It has nothing to do with providing for the family. It's kind of almost a inconsequential byproduct of whether or not we get snack sticks. There's a lot of homes. I've talked to a lot of hunters. Their wife won't eat venison. Their kids, I don't eat that. Can't we just have hamburger, Dad? Cultural shift, societal change, and it's impacted our value system as hunters. And I think if we're going to get back to the conversation of stewardship demands that we do everything in balance. And once you start going down that road, then we've got to get real personal. And, well, what's my value system? And is what I'm doing in the woods, and are my harvest practices ethical? And are they in line with my value system as a steward of our natural resources?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what options are on the table then? I mean, it almost seems, in my opinion, that's what this is about. It almost seems like the issue needs to be forced a little bit here, as far as, forcing people to harvest more does, since we just don't do it. So, Robert, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here, but, the APR zone in the Northwest Lower, kind of talk us through that when it rolled out. how it went at first and through the years, how it's kind of came to where it's at today, and what are you seeing today?
When they actually first started talking about doing it, and it was still the open tags, you could pretty much shoot what you wanted, whatever. I mean, honestly, if you were to shoot a decent 8-point buck, you were lucky. Like, it was crazy the amount of bucks that you just did not see, period. And the deer that you did see, like, they were nocturnal. They were staying in core areas, getting in places that, obviously the hunters couldn't get to. But the doe numbers were just absolutely insane. Now it's kind of shifted. Like I said, we're starting to see a little bit of better balance, I think. Like I said, you're for every 5-6 does, you're seeing 2 to 3 bucks now. Where before you wouldn't see those kind of numbers. Don't get me wrong, and this is gonna ruffle the feathers. But if you want to knock some doe numbers down, put an APR statewide and watch how many does get just flattened. Because that first 2 or 3 years, I'm telling you right now, you're gonna have the guys that are they're gonna be in the legal right, they're gonna have the 3 or more or the 4 or more, whatever it is, but there's gonna be a whole lot more does taken right out. Because that's the way it was here. Especially the first 2 years, it was like everybody was shooting doe. And then it kind of started leveling out a little bit. And now, I mean, it's a 50-50 where our numbers are pretty close here in the county every year.
So I'm just curious too, Robert, when that first hit over there, I mean, were you all for it, or what was your initial thoughts on, APRs being rolled out? Were you all about it, or were you kind of
honestly,
no?
I was totally off the fence. I didn't want it. Like, I absolutely hated it. I hated the idea of it. But honestly, now that it's actually been put in place and it's seeing what it has done to the area, yeah, I'm all for it. And I think that's where a lot of people almost, I want to say, lose focus on it, is they think, oh, well, now I can't go out and shoot the first buck that I see. Well, the first buck that you normally see is that little spike that's doing his thing in October because he thinks it's mid-November. I mean, you pass those guys up and eventually they're going to grow bigger. I mean, it just, I don't know. I think if people were to actually see on the ground what it has done in the APR zone, they would agree more with it.
Right. So just for educational purposes too, because, there's probably a lot of people that might watch this that don't know about the APRs and all that. How long has that been implemented for? How long has that been in effect?
I want to say they put that in 2011 or 2012.
Okay. So it's been over 10 years progression.
I want to say it was 11 or 12, something like that. Yeah, it's been in for a minute now.
Okay. So Dennis, what do you think about APRs down there where you're at? You said you want to have a chance at shooting bigger bucks. I mean,
yeah, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Yeah, it wouldn't hurt me none. But when I was younger, I might have been upset. But now that I'm older and learned a few things, I want to shoot the bigger ones. That's what I do pretty much now. Just watch all the little ones all day long doing their thing and praying and wishing his brother would come out.
Right.
But yeah, I'm definitely for it.
How do you think that would be perceived down there in Southeast Michigan by your fellow hunters? Do you think a lot of moaning and groaning, or you think open arms, or what?
Oh no, there'd be all kinds of crying and cussing. I already know it. Especially the guys that I know. They same old school. If it's brown, it's down.
All right. Bill, your thoughts on APRs?
Let me make sure there's nobody hiding outside the window. I'm gonna come out with a really unpopular opinion, and say I wish we'd go to a $1 state, because at that point, it almost, like we were talking earlier, how many more options do we have to continue to push the hunters we have left to shoot does? Personally, I feel like if we went to a $1 state, or like even Robert was saying with the APRs, being against them, but now watching what has occurred because of them, and now saying, okay, you know, this really is working. I feel like if we were to go to a $1 state, it would give it the opportunity to kind of, you know, it definitely ruffles some feathers, but everybody'd step back for a year or two and really watch the improved, you know, the older bucks. Everybody maybe hopefully start taking more does. But I feel like at this point, you know, that's one of the only options we're dwindling down to.
What about antler point restriction on your one tag that you're talking about, and earn your second buck tag by shooting a doe? And then that one's of course restricted too. That second
Absolutely.
buck tag.
You know, you work it however you want. I think it's definitely a good. I think it's a good start at this point. It's a touchy subject though. I'm trying to figure out how to word it.
Stop it. Spit it out.
Yep, just say it.
I seriously though. I mean, I feel like if we just went to a $1 state though and pushed more people to shoot more does. Look at the amount of people we have in Michigan going out of state, going to Ohio, Illinois, all.
Oh, I think Bill froze up on us. So I think essentially with the $1 tag and APRs, it does force the issue of doe management, because if you want to put venison in your freezer, you're going to shoot does now. Oh, Bill, we lost you for a second, so I started talking.
No, you're good.
But you know, I think a $1 tag, it kind of gives the opportunity for maybe the guys that, you know, don't necessarily get the time that other hunters do to spend out in the woods for whatever reason. You know, it opens up their season a little bit more in that short time they have, gives them an opportunity to fill their tag. At the same time, you know, forcing the issue of shooting does. And then maybe, you know, for the guys that do have more time, if you got $1 tag, you're going to be probably a little more selective on what you're shooting.
Exactly.
So, Jordan, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that in the UP with APRs and the UP. I feel like you get a bad rap up there in UP about not getting big bucks, but there's nice big mature bucks up there too.
So I'll just kick the gas can straight into the fire on this one. I don't like APRs. I don't support APRs. And did I say I don't like APRs? So here's why. Firstly, if you examine how nature functions, okay, your highest mortality rates are where? The young and the old. Naturally, that is what nature kills the most of, the young and the old, and throw in the sick, whatever you want. By default, nature preserves what I will call the breeding stock animals. So in the context of deer, we'll say that's your 2.5 to 4.5 bracket. That is what nature preserves, the way it operates. I think that instituting a policy that focuses hunting pressure entirely on that breeding stock age class operates in direct contradiction to nature's natural path. And I question the wisdom in that. I don't think that we know better than Mother Nature. She's been doing her thing for thousands of years before we had deer management. Number two, I'm a really big fan of allowing as much personal liberty and as much opportunity and choice as we can. And, you know, I know a lot of guys in the trades. I know a lot of guys in law enforcement, and they work obscene amounts of hours. And, you know, a lot of them, they got like a long weekend scenario. Like that's what they got. They got 4 days. They got 5 days. And they don't care. You know, they are happy with a scraggly basket rack 5-point that walks in at 8:05, November 15th, bang, face down in the pile of corn. They're happy with that. And I guess my perspective is, who am I to tell them what their value system should be? Because if they're happy and that's what gets their blood pumping, hey, congratulations, brother. Nice shot, nice deer. He's going to eat good. And again, we're back to value systems, right? What are we hunting for? And the reasons that we hunt are different from person to person. And I think when we start trying to put our fellow hunter into a box and tell him what his value system should be, we're wrong, because we don't all have to have the same reasons. Now, in the context of what is the biological impact, one of the things that concerns me is high grading, right? Because especially prevalent in agricultural areas, I'll say the southern area of the UP, Garden Peninsula, Menominee, or down the lower peninsula, certainly, you can have a year one buck that's got decent genetics. He's a basket 8 at a year and a half old. Now, if that deer and the spike horn are standing next to each other, which one's getting shot? Well, naturally, the basket 8, right? You're going to continue to kill off the very best genetics in your herd at a young age, because antler points are not a substitution for being able to accurately age an animal on the hoof. So the answer is hunter education, not more regulation.
Okay. So are you in favor of a 1 buck tag?
So in the context of the UP, I think the way to go is simply to go back to the old combo tag structure that we had. So effectively what happens there is you can use 1 tag for an archery doe, and then you're left with 1 buck tag. And a lot of people would make that choice. A lot of people. There might be some guys that just say, no, I don't want a doe, or I don't think it's appropriate in my area. But that's what a lot of guys used to do. And that gives people an opportunity to put food on the table for their families without blasting that, pencil rack 5-pointer, right? Because he can take that swamp donkey doe, and then he can go on and hunt for his, iron head buck or whatever it was he named off of his trail camera photos. But I think that would be the way forward. And, maybe in lower Michigan, the answer is different. Maybe it's a 1 buck tag. I've heard a lot of support for that. And based on what I've read and what I've heard from other folks, I could get behind 1 buck.
Absolutely. I think part of the problem also is, I know you have different regulations, and I believe your antlerless season is nil up there in the UP for the most part, right, Jordan?
Yeah, you can't legally harvest a doe in any county that touches Lake Superior. And then it's very limited in the centralized counties. Quotas were reduced from, 2,000 down to 500. And then obviously down to Menominee Garden, they've got a fairly liberal doe harvest there. But the rest of the UP is very, very conservative, very restricted.
Okay. So I know, swinging back down to the lower peninsula, I think a sticking point for me too is with the regulations is blanketing the whole lower peninsula the same way. I don't know your thoughts, Robert, but I don't know if I'm in huge favor of being able to buy 10 doe tags over the counter. I don't think that's good sound science there. I mean, I think there's better ways to manage the doe population around here. I think that could be devastating, but that's my thoughts on that. I mean, do you see the same thing, Robert? I mean, your situation is a little different with the APR because you did see a big doe kill off, but I mean, do you think the doe tag should be handled differently in northern lower peninsula?
I mean, honestly, and I'd like to hear Jordan's opinion on this too. Like, I think at the end of the day, the UP needs something that is different from what we're dealing with, and then we need something that is different from what the southern end of the state is dealing with. Because it seems like you've got a ton of people down south in the southern half that are complaining, deer numbers are crazy and there's just deer everywhere and you can't shoot enough deer. And then it's up here, you kind of get a mix of, okay, there's a pocket over here where there's a huge concentration of deer. Everybody's seeing deer. And then over here, it's kind of a 50-50. But then you listen to what the guys in the UP are dealing with, and it's totally different than everything in the lower peninsula. I mean, I seriously think that they need to open their eyes and really knock it down to 3 different zones, to where the UP has their own set of regulations and how they're going to deal with what they're dealing with up there, because obviously we don't deal with what they deal with up there. I mean, between predators, the winners that they have up there, it's totally different than what we deal with down here, and then what we deal with here is different than Southern Michigan. I don't know. The DNR is, yeah.
And I would even say as far as the UP goes, I mean, you could even split that up. Like Jordan was saying, there's parts of the UP where the deer density is much, much higher than other parts. And do you manage that part of the UP the same as the other part? I mean, I don't know, Jordan, what do you think about that? Do you think there should be a zone split up?
I can tell you that I can drive 20 minutes to my east, and I can be standing in the Huron Mountains, and deer densities are low. You're going to find pockets of deer, but overall densities are low. I can drive 20 minutes the other way, and I can watch 40 deer a night come out in the farm fields of Pelkey. It's night and day. And I think that's the story all across the UP, is that there is such biodiversity and such spotty distribution of deer. The best thing to do here is to use the system that we have, which is, drum roll, DMUs. We have DMU lines, and I don't think they're very useful as we currently employ them. There's no reason to have DMU lines if there's not going to be a management differential between areas. And especially in the UP, I'll give you an example. Where I live is DMU 007. So that stretches from central Baraga County, coming off of Keweenaw Bay, all the way over to the east side of Outrain, because that's all the same, air quotes. That is a massive swath of land that is absolutely incredibly diverse. It is not the same. But when you start asking the department to micromanage, if you will, because that's the moniker they'll put on it, the first thing that comes up is, well, we don't have the staff, well, the budget, well, the this and the that. So here's where I'm at on that. Right now, we're managing based on population estimates and computer models and educated guesses, more or less. That's not going to cut it until we're willing to get back to boots on the ground biology and manage on a DMU to DMU basis. You're going to continue to see broad brushstroke management that will fall flat on its face.
Absolutely. So, it's interesting, and Jordan, you might have a little more insight to that with your work with the DMI and everything. Is it a budgetary issue? Is it a staffing issue? I mean, why is it just so easy to just blanket all of Lower Peninsula? We're going to do it this way. The UP, we're going to do it this way, instead of having those DMUs managed separately. I mean, do you have any insight onto that?
Is there the budget? Yes. Does it get allocated to places I would like it? No. I think we spent $1.2 million on a shower and a bathroom at Bond Falls for Parks and Rec this year. I couldn't think of other places I'd rather have $1.2 million. Cough, cough, several biologists' salaries. Here's the bottom line. White-tailed deer are the flagship species in the state of Michigan. Bar none, I don't care what anybody says, that is the flagship species. That is what Michigan hunters live and die for every year, is that opening October or that opening November day. That gets people fired up in the state of Michigan, unlike anything else. And I think that being that it is our flagship species, it is absolutely worthy of a massive monetary investment. Because, there was a time, especially here in the UP, you see the old pictures before the Mackinac Bridge was built. There were cars lined up bumper to bumper for miles, waiting in line for their chance to get on the ferry and come across and hunt the 30-point buck in God's country. We can have that again, but it's going to take some real boots on the ground biology work. It's going to take some stewardship. And I think that, the bottom line is we need to examine how we're using our funding and perhaps redistribute that more wisely.
Okay. So a lot of comments here. It's almost 50-50 when we talk about the APR, the $1 tag. I don't really know. It'd be nice to know where you guys are commenting from. I think that would kind of help us paint a bigger picture here, but it's 50-50 for APRs or $1 tags. So, could it be a thing in Michigan where there's APRs in certain areas and $1 tags established in other parts of the state? And when we talk about doe management, are there other avenues that we could take to help encourage that doe harvest? I mean, do you guys have any thoughts on that? Because I honestly think if you establish an APR or $1 tag, it'd be interesting to see in a year or two what that does to the harvest numbers, and if the doe harvest doesn't come down, what then? And my thought is, do you start to look at lowering the cost of a doe tag? Or is it pretty much just a moot point if in a few years, if something's established like an APR and a buck tag and the doe harvest doesn't come down, have we lost hope that Michigan hunters will help to balance the herd here? Go ahead, Jordan.
So one of the things to pay attention to is that there is a ton of conversation usually about buck regulations. And whenever we have a conversation about buck regulations, we generally open the conversation with these simple words. I want. And I'll just pause there for a second. When you open with that, what does that say? You're talking about you, yourself, your concerns, your immediate personal goals. So when we talk about deer management, we need to have a conversation that involves a lot more we's and a lot less I's, because the resource has to be first and the hunter has to be second. So we have to have less conversations about what I want and more conversation about what we need. And, Michigan is very buck centric. And I'm not going to stand here and say that, Iowa and Kansas aren't, right? But I think it's a little different. Everybody's got to get their buck. Like that's a thing. And when you talk about APRs, I know a lot of guys are really devout about APRs. And one of the things I hear over and over is APRs change hunter mentality. They change hunter mentality. I'm going to push back on that. I'm going to say, no, they absolutely don't. The only thing that changes is how many points on the buck before it gets killed. They're still going to shoot the first legal buck to the bait pile. It's just not going to be a spike. You didn't change the hunter mentality. You just changed the age by 1 year of the animal being killed. Well, how do you change hunter mentality? Again, we're back to education and we're back to stewardship.
I don't know if you can see this on the screen there, Jordan, but they want you to be Chad Stewart.
Yeah, I promise you I cannot do the job as well as Chad. Chad does a really, really good job, but thank you.
What are your guys' thoughts on as far as the doe management goes? Again, if in a couple years here, if an APR or a $1 tag or something to diminish the male kill is established, and that doe harvest doesn't come down, I mean, what do we do then, or can we do anything at that point?
Break out the spotlight. I'm kidding.
We know where Dennis's hunter mentality is.
I'm kidding. Yeah, I just can't wait to get out there, man. I'm chomping at the bit. But like where I'm hunting here in Romulus, basically, the bucks, I see a lot of bucks. To be honest with you, I've seen more bucks year after year. It seems to be growing the last 3 years, and it's looking pretty good. But as soon as you step out of here and go further down the road, that's all you see out in the fields is does, tons of does, and you'll see anywhere from like say 10, sometimes 20 of them, and you might see 2 bucks in that whole field. And then when you get out to Jackson County and Washtenaw, I like to hunt out there too. You see a ton of does out there, a ton before you see 1 buck. But yeah, something's definitely got to change.
So it's a sobering statistic when you consider the fact that bucks and does are born at a 1-to-1 ratio.
Absolutely. I wish Ray could join us tonight, but he was traveling. He went north for the weekend. He's traveling back home, probably getting unpacked and stuff. But Ray's mentioned where he's at in Clinton County. It's not uncommon for him to see 70 deer out in the field. And now that you can see the antlers real well, 2 of them are bucks. And I can vouch for that. I went down there 2022 for turkey season, and there's a lot of egg down there where he's at. A lot of egg fields. So there's plenty of resources for the animals down there. And I don't care where I was at, what time of day it was, I was seeing deer everywhere. And the majority of them, again, that was May. We're talking turkey season here. So there could have been more bucks, but the vast majority of what I saw were does. And Ray has told us in the past he could shoot 10, 15 does for the next few years and not even make a dent in it. And I'm reading a comment here. I know Ray. Well, he'll fill his freezer up and he'll give a lot of deer away too. But it just doesn't seem that there's other hunters thinking the same way. And then kind of just jumped in my mind too. But what about availability of hunting? I think where he's at, there's very limited public land, so you got to know somebody if you want to hunt those farm fields. And then we can talk about crop permits and all those things too. But
yeah, I don't think you can have the conversation about effective doe management in the Lower Peninsula without addressing the issue of access, because obviously the Lower Peninsula is heavily parcelized, heavily privatized, and access is a problem. And I'm not going to say all farmers are this way, but I mean, there's some farmers that have gotten wise to the lease game, right? And they know what they got. And they're selling leases at top dollar, and people get priced out, which is another concern, right? We're talking about privatization of hunting in the Lower Peninsula. That could happen. Like, that is a real problem. But here's the deal. I'll come clean on this. Market hunting is going to be a conversation that gets had in the future, and is already being had in some back channels if this doesn't go the way it needs to go. Because the bottom line is this: the Department of Natural Resources is charged with managing the deer herd, and the hunter is what? What did our patches say? Deer management cooperator. That's our job, right? And we are no longer effective at doing what we're supposed to be doing. And at some point, I imagine the lawsuits could fly. Maybe it's Farm Bureau, maybe it's the auto insurance companies, maybe it's whoever, and they're going to come after the DNR for failure to manage the herd, right? Bottom line. So at some point, the DNR is going to get force played into absolutely teeing off on does, and that could take the shape of paying people to slaughter does. That is a possible outcome.
We see that already. I think it's down in Ann Arbor and other more urban areas where they pay people to come in and snipe the deer herd.
I thought Ann Arbor was still trying to neuter them, spay and neuter your deer,
They might be doing that too. I don't know. A little bit of both. See which one works better.
I don't get that. Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm at a point where it's like it's up to us, the hunters, to do something, because obviously the NRC made it clear out of their last little stunt that they pulled that they don't care what the hunting public is put out there and what they would like to see. I mean, and not to put you on the spot, Jordan, but until we got a table of a bunch of guys like you, I don't see anything happening. It's just there's too much going on that table, and there's not enough coming back to us as the hunters. And until we see that table change with some like-minded people, I don't foresee changes in Michigan that are going to benefit us. It's sad to say, but I mean, the NRC's kind of made that clear after this last whole shenanigan that they pulled.
Well, I think you're hitting a great point, Robert, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds because that could be its own podcast as we've done before. But you're absolutely right. I mean, we have to put people in these positions that live the life, that hold near and dear the same values that we have, that are active participants in our way of life. And until we do that, I don't think there can be change. You know, I said it this way: we got to start putting good resumes in the stack, because the other side that doesn't like our way of life is doing just that. They're trying to get all the resumes they can in the stack, and we got to do the same thing as sportsmen. You know, if everybody that's in this podcast right now sat and thought about it, they can probably think of at least one person that would make a good commissioner. Throw your name in. You know, it's not actually that hard to do. You know, you go to Google and you type in, you know, Michigan governor appointments, and it'll take you right to the link. It's form fields. It's really simple to fill out the paperwork if you're genuinely interested in being a natural resources commissioner. Now call up your rep and your senator and say, hey, I'm interested. You know, I've applied. I'd appreciate, you know, any help that you can give me, or your endorsement, certainly. It's not complicated to get your name in the hat. It really isn't. But you're absolutely right, Robert. You know, until that changes, I think it's going to be hard to have good policy moving forward.
So one other thing here to touch on tonight, and again, you know, it's pretty clear that the regulation changes are focused on doe management. That's what they want. That's what they're looking for the hunters. And, you know, one thing that they've implemented, and it's a very hot topic, is when you look at that liberty and independent hunt, we're talking about our kids and our veterans. After this year, they have to shoot does. So I don't know your guys' thoughts on that. I mean, we're kind of getting a little bit out of deer management here into personal thoughts and feelings and growing the sport. But I mean, that's ultimately what it's about. I mean, what do you guys think about that regulation change? And I mean, obviously we know why they did it, but I personally, I'm not in favor of it.
No.
We're in such competition with these kids with devices and distractions and all these things in the world, you know, to take one more incentive out of this lifestyle, which there's a big argument about that. They should be raised that way. It's more than just shooting a buck and all that stuff. But, you know, but even more so our veterans, that some of them, you know, they don't have the quality of life, and now they don't have that opportunity to go out and have a chance. You know, they can't get out with all us other guys in October and November. It's just, they've been dealt a hand and they got to deal with it. What do you guys think about all that?
Honestly, I think it's a load. They should be able to do that. But I also hear from other people a lot that they want to do away with it because people seem to think that's when all the big bucks are shot. But I mean, what do they account for? Like, was it half or 2% or something like that of the whole population taken that year? That's all it accounts for. I say, let them do it, man. They can't, like I said, some of them boys can't get out there, but just during that hunt, that's their opportunity to get their deer. You know what I mean? I'm all for it.
Robert, what do you think about it?
I mean, I don't think there should be a regulation on it. It doesn't make sense to me. It's a 2-day season. I mean, like Dennis said, it's a whole 2% of everything that is harvested. Come on. I mean, you're talking about kids, one, and I'll tell you right now, if you can get a kid in the woods and off of this right here, you're doing something right, because today, this right here is mind control over every kid, it seems like.
It's cancer.
If they want to shoot a buck, let them shoot a buck. I mean, whether it's a spike or the 10-point that the neighbor's been chasing all year, boo-hoo. Sorry, the kid got lucky. It is what it is. I mean, I don't agree with it.
Bill?
I'm with you guys, man. I don't agree with it. And kind of to piggyback off of what you said, Tim, you know, I understand, you know, it's not about shooting a buck, but anymore with the phones and everything else, you need every little inch you can. Like my first buck personally was a spike. It was just a 6-inch spike, but you know what, man? That thing could have been a 10-point for all I cared. And that just kept me going back year after year, and now I'm in it 20 years, you know, but just that, even that little spike, man, made the biggest difference to me as a kid and kept me pursuing it. I don't agree with it. I think, you know, whether you're a veteran or you're a kid, it's a 2-day season, you know?
Jordan?
Oh, I'm gonna get passionate about this, so y'all just hold the phone.
I love it.
So let's start with this. The mandate of the Natural Resources Commission is as follows, and I quote, to make all natural resources decisions based on the best available sound scientific evidence, end quote. Show me the science that says if we don't make the disabled people and the children shoot does, the deer herd is doomed. I'll wait. Show me the science. That's BS. That was a social decision. It was not a scientific decision. That is repugnant of Proposal G. It is repugnant of the NRC's mandate, and it should never have happened. It should never have even been proposed. It is quite possibly one of the dumbest things that they did during that whole process, and there were a lot of those. But that one was a special flavor of stupid. If it's any measure of how out of touch with hunters and our way of life and the decision-making process that our present commission truly is, if it's any measure of how out of touch they are, they genuinely thought it was a good idea to take away opportunity from children and from disabled people. Think about that. That is completely irrational and completely illogical. No matter which way you turn it and try to make it make sense, you can't make it make sense. And when you have people sitting in those seats making decisions like that, my God.
Yeah. You hear this a lot. It's the parents are going out and shooting the deer. I'm sure that happens, but I think it's a very, very, very low percentage that happens. Speaking as a father right now, I would love nothing more than to pass on this heritage to my children and to exploit them and use them for my own personal benefit would hurt me more as a father to take that away from them more than anything else in the world. So I'm sure it happens. I'm sure a parent has used their kid's tag, but that's a special kind of hunter there. That's not really a hunter at that point. As a father, my goal is to be with them and share that moment, put in the work. I hear that too. Oh, it's too easy. They don't put in the work. I mean, it is what you make of it. And I don't care if it's a 2-day season in September. I don't care if it's the whole month of October, November. You get out of it what you put into it. And the moment's even more special when you do the scouting, when you're out there showing them, you know, the rubs and the scrapes and deer trails and food sources and water sources and bedding areas and all those. It doesn't matter if it's 2-day season or gun season or whatever. You definitely get out of it what you put into it. So even though we focus on the youth hunt and we think it's the cure-all for, you know, getting kids into hunting, I'm sure a lot of kids hunt the youth hunt, shoot some nice bucks, and then after a few years fall out of it. You still got to put in the work. So, you know, some of these things I hear regarding the youth hunt, I just don't agree with it. So I don't know if you guys want to chime in on that. I'm kind of getting off of deer management. So
I think that there might be a way to go about that kind of pacifies both camps. And I'll just share a little bit about how I did it with my sons. My house rule is your first deer will be a doe. Period. Why? Well, because the doe is just as valuable as the buck is. And we need to learn about the value of the doe. And in my house, wild game is what feeds our family. We don't buy much from the Krogers, the Myers, the Walmarts. You know, we stock our freezer with what we grow, with what we raise, with what we catch, with what we kill. So for us, it is very much true to our roots, our hunting heritage. And it's about food. And The reward is after a couple of does, okay, now we've got our feet wet. Now we're excited. Now we're going to go after a buck. We're going to up the bar a little bit here. And I think that it would be easy enough to implement a system like that if you wanted to, for the people that argue it. And I think it's fair that there's value to the doe and we need to teach that. Say, hey, the first year or the first 2 years, even, it's got to be an antlerless. And then we'll open it up to the buck. Maybe that works. It works in my house, but who am I to tell someone else how to run their home?
Anybody else got thoughts on the youth hunt, disabled hunt that they'd like to share?
I'd just say leave them be and let them go, man. I mean, yeah, that was pretty ridiculous. Like I said, I don't see what the big difference was. I mean, if you take that 2% away, it's sad.
Right. Any other topics that we didn't cover tonight that you guys would like to go over? I think we've kind of hit most of the big ones on the head. But I'm always and if you're watching us out there, if you got anything you'd like us to discuss, drop it in the comments real quick. But do you guys have anything else?
Yeah, I got one. So it's that time of year where a lot of the guys that haven't done their due diligence all year are starting to get the bow out from underneath the bed and blow the dust off and, make a porcupine out of the backyard foam target, all dialed in at 20. So here's the deal. Don't be that guy. Diligence in the off season is free. Tracking dogs are not. We owe it to the quarry that we pursue to be ethical and to kill as clean and humanely as possible. So for all you guys that have put it off, now's your time to grind, baby. Get out there every single night and start stacking them arrows in them 3-inch circles. Don't put it off. Don't wait.
Right. And right now is prime time to be doing that because when's the highest percentage of having a nice big mature deer walk in? Last light. So these next 15 minutes, as soon as we get off here, everybody go out and shoot your bows.
That's right.
I got the target ready to go, man.
So, all right, we don't have any comments coming in. So this has been a great discussion tonight. A lot of comments and opinions shared below with us. We thank you all for joining us. Jordan, Robert, thank you guys so much for hopping on tonight. It's definitely good to hear different perspectives coming from the APR area and the UP and, Dennis, Bill, thank you guys so much. So appreciate y'all your time. We're 29 days away. We got the youth hunt coming up. We do have a contest going on for that. We'll kind of get more into the details, but we have all of our partners are 100% bought in. They're giving into the contest. We're going to have a boy winner and a girl winner. So we encourage you guys to get your kids out there, get them hunting, shoot that big buck, and share it with us here at Michigan Outdoors Report. Big doe too. We're not going to hate on the big does. Buck or doe, share it with us, and
I want to see them all.
you have an opportunity to win. So, again, we thank you guys for joining us. Get out there, shoot those bows, and we'll see you soon.